Hello and welcome to the PhotoVidShow tutorials version 4.41. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how you can add a narration to your slideshow. Also I'm going to show you how you can add sound effects as well, so certain sounds will appear on certain slides. Okay, let's get started then. So here we continue from the last tutorial where we added some background music to our France holiday to Normandy. So we've got our background music in there and we're happy, but what we would like to do is perhaps just talk through some of the slides. You know, we want to add a bit of a narration, or maybe we want to add some sound effects that will appear when certain slides will appear. So how do we do that? Now, to record a narration, if you want to record it live, you obviously need, your PC will obviously have to come with a microphone. A lot of laptops now will have them built in. You may not realise it, but it has. Else you can just buy a cheap one. They cost not very much really. But you can actually add narrations recorded previously, and you can just add them in as a file, which I'll show you in a minute. So you don't necessarily have to record them live just to add them into the slideshow. So to narrate your whole slideshow from the beginning, you can simply make sure nothing's highlighted in the storyboard here and select this microphone icon here. Record narration from the current position or selected slide. There's nothing selected and we're at the start of the slideshow. It just simply records from the start. So you hit the microphone option. If you don't have a microphone plugged in, it will then complain. You'll have to have some sort of microphone plugged in for this option to come up. So when we record our narration, which will appear here in our narration bar down here, it needs to create a file on your hard drive. So it's just a sort of sound file, music file if you like, with your narration on it. So here we have to give it a name. We can just leave it to default, which is narration 1. The store location just defaults to your music folder or whatever you set up in your default store locations up here, and also the record device. This would be your microphone. I've only got one microphone, so that's fine. To start recording, you hit this button here. Once you hit it, it will start playing your slideshow as well. So you can preview your slideshow and you can talk whilst it's playing. Sometimes it's nice to hear sort of echo back. You know, you want your PC to play back while you're speaking, so you can get the volume right. Sometimes it's useful to do that, so you can the volume's not too loud or too quiet. The only issue is that if you're playing it back, obviously you can get kind of a feedback effect where playing it out will also feed back into the microphone in a kind of whistles kind of sound. So if you do that, it's best to use headphones. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave that off. So as soon as you hit the record button, it starts recording and it's now actually playing our slideshow. So this is that initial sequence. As I said, you can just talk through your slideshow now if you wish. If you wish to pause at any moment, you know, if you just want to take a glass of water or need a toilet break, you can just hit the pause button and it will pause the narration, and then when you're happy to continue, you just hit the record, continue recording again. So you can talk like that, and you don't have to record the whole narration. You can just do segments, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. So you could just go all the way through to the end here, but I'm not, so I'm going to hit the stop button now. There we go. And there we go. It's added our narration here, as you can see. It was a 35-second one. If I now play my slideshow, it will now play back the music and the narration. It starts recording and it's now actually playing our slideshow. So this, there we go. Yeah, I'll just check the audio balance there. So there we go. So once your narration's in there, that initial sequence, you don't actually have to keep it in the location it's stored in. You can move it about. So say you don't want the narration to start at the beginning, you want to have it somewhere else. You can actually, if you hold left click on the narration bar, you can actually move it about like this. Now you can't do this on the music bar, but you can do this on the narration bar. This is something different. So you can move that so the narration would start at time 15 seconds or something like that. Also, if you want to trim your narration, maybe it was just too long, it's very similar to the music bar. You can right click on it, or you can double left click on it, and you can select edit trim narration. There we go, and you can actually trim it now. You can play it back. It starts recording, and you can just trim this. This is the same process as we did for the music bar. So if you're not sure how to do this, if you can go back to that tutorial, it's the same process where you can just set the start time and end time and anything like that. It's just the same. So we're not going to do that. If you don't want some narration now, if you don't want a narration and want to remove it, you can right click and select remove narration. There we go, so it's gone. But it's not permanently gone because it did save it as a file. So if you want to add a narration from a file that you previously recorded, if you left click on the little tick thing just right of the microphone there, select add narration or sound from an audio file. There you can see that's the file there. So if I select open, it's added it back in. Okay, so that's useful, but what I'm going to show you to do now is instead of talking through the whole narration, sometimes you just want to add just talk through certain segments of your slideshow. So we've got a section here where I visited Omaha Beach in Normandy, so maybe I just want to say that's what this is, where the location is. So what you can do, if you left click on a slide, you want the narration to begin, you can then hit the record narration button again, and it will actually just start recording from this slide. A simpler way to do this is to simply right click on the slide and select record narration from this slide. So when you do that, it will start recording that narration from this point of the slideshow. So there we go, and we can start recording again from this point of the slideshow. This is Omaha Beach Cemetery, which we visited in 2015 in Normandy. There we go. So if we now preview this, this is Omaha Beach Cemetery, which we visited in 2015 in Normandy. There we go. So it's added our quick narration there. So you can go through your slideshow and you can record narrations to bits, anything you want. If sometimes the audio balance between your background music, your video and your narration may not be right, so if your narration's a bit quiet or your music's too loud, a useful tip is to select the spanner icon, select the music audio tab here, and you can set the master volumes. I discussed this briefly on the previous tutorial, and you can set the volume of what your narration or your music or your video will come out like. Normally this is at 100% on all three of them. I've had to quiet these down because the music would be too loud and you wouldn't be able to hear me speak. So that's useful tip to know. Right, now in this bit of the slideshow I've added 3 slides here, and I've added this snapshot type transition effect. There we go. Like that. It's a snapshot effect. So maybe I want to add a camera snapshot sound to it, just to give it more effect. So what you can do is, if you right click on this little tick and say add narrational sound from audio file, you can add some sounds. Now PhotoVidShow doesn't come with any sounds, so you'll have to find your own or from your own archive. They're easily found on the internet. I found this one on the internet quite quickly. There's a camera shutter effect here, so I'm going to add that in. It normally adds it, there we go, to the far left hand side of where you're scrolled. So if I move it there, just roughly to line up there, because that's roughly when that slide will start. So when I play this section now, it should make a camera snapshot sound. There we go, like that. So that's nice. So we can add a few more of those in. Let's add another one. Let's move that there. And actually let's move that there. And add the third one. There we go. So when we play this section of our slideshow now, it should have our little narration section introducing where the location is and our sound effects here on these 3 slides. This is Omaha Beach Cemetery, which we visited in 2015 in Normandy. There you go. See, so that's how you add sound effects and narration sections to your slideshow. So you can go to town with this. You can add all sorts of things. Now, there's one last thing I'm going to show in this tutorial. In the previous tutorial about adding background music, we talked about this and an initial silence section here and sections, things like that. I just want to show you that it is actually possible to add music to your narration bar to do a similar effect. Sometimes, if you don't want a narrational sounds to your slideshow, but you're having problems lining up your music correctly, you can actually use the narration bar. So if I open this project again before we added the narrations, it's just loading up now. Okay, now if we just double click here, and if we just remove, I'm just going to remove all the background audio. There we go. So we're back to where we are with no background audio. Now, instead of adding our music to the music soundtrack one, we could add it to this narration soundbar by using that left tick there from the microphone and say add narrational sound, but we're actually going to add music. So we're going to add that music there. Now, if you remember previously, we wanted this music to start at 15 seconds and not from the start of the slideshow. So I could simply just left click and hold and move that, as you can see, until it says time 15. Simply like that. So now when we play this section of the slideshow, the music starts at time 15. So that may be a simpler way of doing it for you. So to add additional music, you could just you do that again, and you could add and it will just add it onto the end. So you could even move that about. So you could really line your music up like this. Sometimes it's nice to do it like this, but sometimes it's just nice to say, well, this is the background track listing, and just play them one after another, which is the default way of doing it up here. Because if I was to edit my slides even more, all these musics would be out of line. So sometimes you're not interested in that. But if you want to line your music up, and the previous tutorial wasn't the way to do it, you can just do it the way I've just shown you here. Okay, I've hope you've learnt today. I've shown you how to add narrations to your slideshow, and how to add sound effects, and also how you can actually use the narration bar for your music as well. See you soon for the next tutorial.